Hi there, Nigel Saunders for KW Bonsai. Today we're looking at our larch forest. The secondary growth of the year is starting to come in quite strongly now, and it's time to prune that back. And we're also going to be working on our landscape some more. So let's get to it. So on the new growth, you can see the different zones of vigor. The new growth up top is really strong and quite long. And the growth down below is very weak, small, almost insignificant. So what we're going to be doing is pruning our upper growth back hard. And again, we're just going to leave a couple of needles of the new growth on the tree. So if we're pruning, we'll come in really tight here between the needles and prune it off. And the amount we prune off will depend on the vigor. If it's a really strong shoot like this upright one, we'll go back very hard, leaving only a couple of pairs of needles, like that. If it's a weaker shoot like this one, we'll leave it a little longer, leaving, 3 or 4 pairs of needles. Well, I shouldn't say pairs. 3 or 4 clusters of needles. They don't grow in pairs in these. So that's what we're going to be doing, is going through the tree, and depending on the vigor, we'll be pruning more or less off each shoot. So here's the apex of the largest tree in the planting. And again, we're going to prune it back hard on top, leaving just a few needles in here. Some of the weaker shoots like this one, we'll prune back a little less. Here's a weak one. You also might want, if growth is vertical and you don't want it vertical, if your main branch is coming off to the side, you might want to prune off some of the weaker vertical growth quite close to the branch too, in order to keep your foliage pads. Like here's a weak one, and we'll just prune it back, leaving a little bit of the new green growth, but not much. These ones are also growing vertically from a horizontal branch, so we'll prune them quite hard, but again, leaving some of the new growth always. If it's new growth that you simply don't want, if it's growing vertical in a spot you don't want any foliage, you can prune it right off. But it's nice to leave as much new growth as possible, because it does give you styling options. When the needles fall off the tree and you have a lot of branching, you can then select which branches you'll prune off in fall when it's all bare and you can see the structure. So it's always nice to keep as much ramification as you can, and then when it loses its needles, you go in and prune the branch down for shape and structure. And the more growth you have, the more options you have in that branch pruning. Prune that one a little harder there. And I'm trying to cut between needles. It'll minimize the browning you get on the tips after pruning. So we're slowly getting there on the apex. That one's got to be pruned back harder. How's that looking? That looks better for the apex. So some of these areas with less vigor, if we got a nice direction to the branch, we'll just prune part of it off. Not as hard as up top. Just pinch the tip off that one. Here's some vertical growth we can take back a little harder. So that's about all you can do down below, is just some light pruning to those new growing tips. So all the major pruning is up top where it's vigorous. So we've got a good start on this tree. So I'll continue doing that, pruning the trees up, and we'll come back when I'm finished that, and we can start doing some landscape work. I've got the new growth pruned and in check. One note on the watering of these trees. Larches use a lot of water to begin with. They like lots of water. And when you have this many trees in a small pot, it dries out very quickly. So on a hot, dry day in summer, I'll have to water this 3 to 4 times a day. In the morning, at noon, late afternoon, and at nighttime again. It uses a lot of water. So you really have to be careful with forest plantings that they don't dry out. And that goes with any forest. You've got so many trees in a small pot, the pot will fill with roots and it'll just drink lots of water. It'll just suck the water back. And so you got to be careful, especially in the summer. Okay, so the next thing we're going to be doing on this tree is we're going to go in and clean up the landscape and probably put a pathway through the forest floor. So let's go in and do that next. So again, we're going to prune our moss away from the base of the trees so we don't get moss growing up the trunks on them. I have had some birds come in here and kick some of the moss off the surface in this section, so we'll have to fix some of that moss up. And there's a lot of sections of moss that need pruning. It's getting too long and tuffy. We've got some areas of this shade moss starting to grow into our sunlight moss. There's another chunk that's loose there. So when a tree's outside, you're going to get a lot of things. You'll get really hot, dry summer days. Your moss might go a little brown. You're going to get birds kicking moss off the surface of your planting. So you're always fixing your landscape. It never quite stays the same. Which is good. I mean, gives you something to do. Keeps those birds happy too when they kick away all the moss looking for worms. I don't think they ever find any worms in here, but it doesn't stop them from trying. So I'm just doing a general cleanup here. So yeah, areas where the moss is getting a little long, we go in and scissor prune it. Kind of leaving a little tufts of moss here and there to break up the surface. On some bonsai trees you want a nice flat covering of moss. But in a forest like this you want it uneven so the ground doesn't look flat. It looks, you know, it has a lot of hills and little bumps and stuff. You want to break up your surface. So I've been thinking about a pathway through here. And unfortunately this fallen tree here is sort of in the middle of where I want the pathway. I kind of want it to come around the front here and maybe going back between these two bushes here. So we may have to change the position of that fallen branch, the fallen tree. I'll have a look at it and try and decide. So after a lot of thought, I've decided to move this tree, just move it over more to clear up this center section for kind of a pathway. I tried it over on this side and it just didn't look right. It looked out of scale. This clump of trees looks like they're further back in the distance, and this clump of trees looks like they're more in the foreground. So when I moved this tree over this side, it just didn't look to the right scale. It looked too big. So over on this side it looks about right. So I just had to push it over. I tried a lot of different other positions and I couldn't get anything that looked any better. So we'll try it like that for now. One thing I'm thinking this needs, I like the change in terrain from this low part to this higher part here, but I still think it needs a bit more of a hill on top here. So I'm going to try maybe building up sort of a secondary hill in here, and I think it'll give it a little more of a, and this part looks just a little too flat here for my liking, so I'll try building up a hill there and we'll see what it looks like. So here we go with our hill. We're going to mound up some bonsai soil in the middle here. See how it looks. It needs to be back further, kind of behind those two trees. Sort of a gradual rise towards the back. So let's go around back now. We'll put some soil in back here. We'll kind of taper it so it's getting higher towards the back here. See how that looks from the front? Yeah, I'm kind of liking it. Could even still be a little higher probably towards the back there. I might have to mix up some sort of some muck or something to hold it in place at the back, so it kind of creates a bit of a wall to hold it all in place so it doesn't all run off. So maybe I'll do that. So I'm just mixing up some muck. It's a mixture of composted sheep manure and bonsai soil. And I'm just going to mix it to like a cement-like consistency, and that'll allow me to kind of build a wall at the back of the planting that we can pile our bonsai soil up to. Well, it's looking pretty good. Just kind of holds its shape. I've got my muck back here. I'm going to start applying it to the back here. And once we get the moss on this, it'll help hold it in place so it doesn't run off when it rains. When we do go to replant these trees, I'll position the trees on the hill a little higher, just so they're not buried so far deep in the soil. That should do it. I'll show you a view from the back so you can see what's going on. Yeah, here's a shot around the back showing the kind of wall we built. That should hold the soil in place. So I'm going to put some more muck on the front now to kind of level off our soil and sculpt it a bit. Sculpt our hill. And just a little more height here. A little more towards the back here. Let's see how that looks. Yeah, so I think the height of the hill is pretty good. Kind of gives that impression of a hillside. So the next thing to do, we'll give it a light watering, and then we'll put some moss on it. So we don't want to give it too much water. We don't want to wash it all away until we get our moss in place. But we do just want to wet the bonsai soil and give everything a water here. That's not bad. It's staying in place pretty good. So I want to keep it, you know, this level of as a pathway here. And then stuff will go up on our hill. Let's see how that's looking. There is a rock on this side that's kind of doing nothing. I'm thinking of maybe making it part of the hill. I think that would look better. Let's see that. Yeah, that gives it a little more of a solid feel on the hill. So we're starting to see the effect of the hill. It's looking, we've got our low section, our medium section, and a high section. It's starting to look good, I think. I have to go now, so we'll probably finish this tomorrow. So I'll see everyone then. Hi everyone, welcome back. We're on day 2 now. So I've got a lot of the moss on the hill. I'm going to do a lot of cleanup. You know, get all these chunks of vermiculite picked out, fallen needles and things like that. And then we'll, after we clean it all up, we'll have a look at it and kind of see if we like it or not. And how it can still be improved. So we'll be back in a bit. I've got a lot of the hill cleaned up now, so it's time to look at it and, you know, get an overall view of it and see if we like it. So I'm going to come back and check it out from back here. And I do like the variation in terrain. Gives it a more of a mountainous look. So I've tried placing this dead tree in various places. I've tried it in here, and I don't like it. It distracts you from the hill. I tried it over the edge. It looks okay there. That's probably its best spot. I tried it in over here. It just doesn't look good. Too big, I think, for the scale of the planting. So I think I'm going to leave it out for now. I do like it here the best, but I don't think we need it at the moment. I think there's enough going on without having this in there at the moment, so we'll leave it out for now. We'll save it for maybe. If we rearrange this forest again, maybe we'll have a spot for it. So the next thing, we've kind of got our pathway. Get that flattened down there again. We've kind of got our pathway going up here, and it's a little mossy. So we may want to change the surface with something like, you know, shredded peat or something. We'll see. But the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to prune up these bushes behind here, which is just a shade moss, which is a coarser looking shade moss. So I'm going to go in and prune that up just to look more like a bush, so it's not, it's kind of spreading out now. So we just need to go in and prune away around it, get it to look more like a bush growing in a forest rather than a lump that kind of blends in with the surrounding area. So I'm just kind of pruning away the moss at the base of it. Okay, so I've got the path kind of cleaned up, so you would walk kind of along here and between the two bushes that are just moss. That looks kind of inviting. You know, if you have sort of a place that you can imagine walking around in the forest. So I like having the high hill, the medium section, and I think the corner here should be a little lower. It's kind of looking a little flat in this section now, so I'm just going to see what's down here. Wow, lots of roots. Okay. I think we'll just prune our moss as low as we can in that section. It's just filled with roots from the larch trees. And maybe when we go to repot it this coming spring, we can make it a little lower in this section and play around with our elevations a little more. I don't know if that's done a whole lot, but I'll come back and have a look at it. That adds just a little bit of an elevation change there. I think we're going to try the old sand trick on the pathways. I do want an indication of a path, but I don't want it too obvious. So I think if we just sprinkle some sand on there, water it so it kind of seeps in, you'll just see a slight difference. It might look like a path that's been lightly used or used by animals or something. So let's try that next. So I'm just going to put some sand on the pathways here. And the pathway kind of tapers away. It's got a bit of forced perspective in it. So it starts thick or wide at the start and then kind of tapers or narrows down towards the back where it disappears between those two bushes. Not sure what this is going to look like, but we'll give it a try. You can always put a little too much sand on and then it'll wash away the excess. Okay, let's get our watering can and we'll give it a wash. Let's see what it looks like then. Okay, here we go with our water. You can see it already washing away, which is good. So we want to wash a lot of it away so we see a bit of the moss through it. There's the rooster. How nice. Give everything else a water too. It's getting a little dry again. Nice thing about sand is it's kind of self-leveling, especially for doing these pathways and stuff. Water our hill. Yeah. Urkety, urkety, urkety. Okay, I think that'll do it. Kind of starting to run out of light. I got back to this a little later than I thought. I was called away again. Okay, let's have a look at it from down below. So after watering it, I really like the path. I think it turned out really good. It's kind of just subtle in there. It was kind of the look I was after. So wow, we did one thing right. Amazing. So I'm just doing a little more cleanup. There's still some pieces of perlite showing through here. I can see someday maybe having some sort of maybe some rock steps in here or something. I don't know. Who knows in the future what we'll do. So I'll put the planting in its wooden frame and we'll have a final look at it for today. One thing you might have noticed that during the making of this video, the lighting conditions have changed quite a bit. Depending where the sun is, what time of the day it is, and that kind of thing. You get a lot of different light variations on the forest, and that's one of the appeals of bonsai, is seeing your tree throughout the day, in the morning, mid-afternoon, evening, and that kind of thing. It's kind of neat seeing how the tree looks under different lighting. So I just thought I'd mention that. So we're done our work for the last 2 days. I'm happy with it. I'm a little disappointed we couldn't get our dead tree in there, but I think it would just be too much. I think the terrain is interesting enough by itself now, so we don't need anything like that. Of course, we'll be doing more to this forest planting as time goes on, but yeah, just little steps. And also, I wouldn't say it's a better looking forest floor at the moment. It's just different. Before we had a flatter terrain, now we have a hill. So, you know, there's no right or wrong. It's just, maybe this appeals to me at the present time. 2 years from now, it could be flatter again. Who knows? But it's kind of fun to try out different things and see what you like. So we'll have a last look at the forest floor before we go. Nigel Saunders for KW Bonsai. We'll see you next time.